Hello students, today we are going to study chapter number 7, cell division. Okay. Cell division, first we will start with the definition. What do you mean by cell division? Cell division is a process by which a cell divides into 2 or 4 daughter cells. I repeat the definition. Cell division means a process by which a cell divides into 2 or 4 daughter cells. Okay, so it is a process in which division, the word division means divide. Okay, so what is going to divide here? Here the cell is going to divide. The cell is divided into 2 or 4 cells, and those cells are known as daughter cells. So the entire chapter we are going to study about cell division. How the cell divides, the different process by which the cell divides. The Rudolf Virchow, he has discovered this process of cell theory. Okay, when we say cell division, that cell divides into a new cell, divides into 2 or 4 daughter cells. The all new cells arises from the new existing cells, that is pre-existing cells. We can say that all the cells, all the new cells are formed from the pre-existing cells. Okay, as stated in the cell theory, every cell arises from the pre-existing cell. Cell theory is stating this statement that all the cells are arising from the pre-existing cells, as we have studied this earlier. Okay, this cell theory was discovered by Rudolf Virchow. He told that all living things are composed of one or more cells. In organisms, cells are the basic unit of structure and function. All cells are produced only from the existing cells. Okay, every cell is produced from the pre-existing cells. Next, we are going to study about cell cycle. Let us start with the definition. What do you mean by cell cycle? Sequential events occurring in the life of a cell is called as cell cycle. Okay, sequential events means the events that are occurring in the sequence in the life cycle of a cell is called cell cycle. The period between two successive division is called generation time. Okay, the period between two successive division. That means whenever the two divisions are going to take place, when a cell is going to divide from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, the time period that is between the two successive division is called as cell cycle. Okay, it's called as generation time. The series of changes or sequential events which occur in the life of a dividing cell is called as cell cycle. Okay. So, this cell cycle is divided into two phases, that is interphase and M phase. Let us first study about the interphase. Interphase alternates with the period of division, that is M phase. First interphase is going to take place, then M phase is going to take place. After M phase, again interphase. That means both these phases, interphase and M phase, alternates with each other. Let us start with interphase. Interphase is the stage between two successive cell division. It is the longest phase of cell cycle. Okay, there are many phases we are going to study. G1 phase, S phase, G2 phase, M phase. So among that M phase and interphase, interphase is the longest phase, okay, of cell cycle, during which the cell is highly active and prepares itself for cell division. This is the only phase when the cell is active and it prepares itself for cell division. Initially, this phase was not recognized in earlier stages. This phase was believed to be dumb stage. But later on it was realized, it was recognized that the cells are mostly active and they prepares itself for cell division during this phase, and hence the name for this phase was given as interphase and active phase, preparatory phase. The cell prepares itself for cell division in this stage. So this stage is also known as preparatory phase. This question can come in your exams, that interphase is known as preparatory phase. Give reason. So the answer is very simple. The cell actually prepares itself for cell division during this stage. So it is known as preparatory phase. Okay. So let us study further. The interphase is divisible into three subphases as G1 phase, S phase and G2 phase. I repeat, interphase is divisible into three subphases as G1 phase, S phase and G2 phase. So let us see the diagram of cell cycle. This is the diagram of cell cycle where you can say two stages are seen, that is interphase and M phase. This is interphase. Okay, this complete is interphase and the remaining part is M phase. Okay, you can see here interphase, this is completely interphase where G1, S and G2 is seen. And the remaining part of the cell cycle is M phase. Okay, M phase means mitosis phase or mitotic or meiosis. First mitosis and then meiosis. So now let us study in detail about the each phase, that is G1, S and G2. Beginning with the G1 phase. This is also known as first gap phase. It is also known as first growth phase or first gap phase. Okay, it starts immediately after cell division. You can see here mitotic phase is ending and immediately after this phase, G1 phase begins. That means the G1 phase starts immediately after cell division. Cell performs different functions during this G1 phase. That is, it prepares RNA. RNA synthesis takes place in this phase. It can be mRNA, rRNA and tRNA. And also the other work that it does in this phase is protein synthesis and synthesis of membranes during this G1 phase. Okay, so G1 phase known as first gap phase or first growth phase. It starts immediately after the M phase and cell performs different functions during this phase, that is protein synthesis, RNA synthesis and etc. Okay. So next, let us see next phase. I repeat again this. First growth phase, also known as post mitotic gap phase, and it is coming after mitosis phase. So it is known as post mitotic gap phase. Synthesis of proteins, energy molecules takes place during this phase, and before this phase there is one quiescent stage of G0. Okay, where cell division is completely stopped. No cell division occurs during the G0 phase. Okay, some cells do not have gap phase in their cell cycle, whereas some cells spend maximum part of their life in a gap phase. Search for such cells. Some cells are said to be in the G0 phase. Okay, such cells are then said to be in G0 phase, that is when cell division does not take place. Okay, so let us move to the next phase, that is S phase. You can see here S phase. It is also known as synthetic phase. The other name for S phase is synthetic phase. Okay, replication. Now we will study the function. First location and then function. For all the phases, first we have to study the location and then function. So function of S phase is replication of DNA and genetic material duplicates. What does takes place in S phase? Replication of DNA and genetic material duplicates. The DNA replicates and genetic material also duplicates during this phase. Nucleus becomes double in size. When we say replication of DNA, that means duplication of the nucleus, because since when DNA will be replicated, its size will be doubled And for the double size of DNA, we require double size of nucleus. So, in this phase, S phase, nucleus becomes double in size and histone proteins are also produced during this phase. Okay, so I repeat, S phase, synthetic phase. S phase is also known as synthetic phase, and in this phase replication of DNA and takes place and genetic material also duplicates. At the same time, nucleus becomes double in size and histone proteins are also produced. Next is G2 phase. You can see here in this diagram G2 phase. What do you mean by G2? G2 means second growth phase and it is also known as pre-mitotic gap phase. You can see here that it occurs before M phase. You can see here this is M phase and before this M phase G2 phase is occurring, so it is known as pre-mitotic. Something that takes place after is known as post and something that takes place before is known as pre. So G1 is post-mitotic gap phase and G2 is pre-mitotic gap phase. Okay, here in this phase what is going to take place, what events are going to take place, what is the function of G2 is synthesis of tubulin, spindle protein and proteins. That means here also the function is same as G1, that is synthesis of proteins, synthesis of RNA, etc. Duplication of cell organelles like mitochondria and chloroplasts also takes place during this phase. Centrioles duplicates and two centrosomes are formed. Okay, centrioles are duplicating and two centrosomes are formed during G2 phase. Okay, so G1 phase, S phase, G2 phase. G1 phase, post-mitotic gap phase, since it comes after M phase. S phase, synthetic phase, and G2 phase, it is known as pre-mitotic gap phase. G1 phase, the synthesis of proteins and RNA is taking place. In S phase, synthesis of DNA takes place, and G2 phase, again synthesis of proteins and RNA taking place. Okay. Now, various proteins that are necessary for cell division are synthesized during this phase. We can see that in animal cell, a daughter pair of centrioles appear near the pre-existing pair. But we will not study about the animal cell, we are studying about the plant cell. So let us focus on the plant cells only. Okay. Next is M phase. What do you mean by M phase? M stands for mitosis or meiosis. M stands for mitosis or meiosis. M phase involves karyokinesis and cytokinesis, whereas karyokinesis means the division of nucleus into two daughter cells and cytokinesis means the division of cytoplasm into two daughter cells. Okay, so M phase means what? M phase means mitosis or meiosis. It is the actual cell division phase in which cell division takes place. Okay, M phase is the actual phase of cell division. In this, cell division occurs actually. It is a phase where DNA is distributed to the daughter cells in a complicated series of events. Okay, DNA is distributed. Let us see how it will be distributed in the future. Okay, in the further chapter, we are going to study the mitosis and meiosis in detail. Certain cells which do not divide will enter G0 phase called quiescent stage. I already discussed that in the quiescent stage, cell division does not take place. So the cells which are going to divide are going to occur in the mitosis and meiosis phase, and the cells which are not going to divide are going to occur in the G0 phase. Okay, so quiescent stage. Further, in this chapter, we will study about the types of cell division, that is amitosis, mitosis and meiosis in detail. So we will stop for today I hope you all have understood. Thank you.